See anything on the insides?
A big piece here. This is actually in the Telegraph. Andrew Orlowski is looking at what's going on with our productivity. Is essentially what he's looking at. The starting point is that economists and policy organisers say flat productivity in the UK, which is much talked about as a real problem. It rose by 2% on average every year in the 3 decades to 2008, but just 0.5% annually since. It's a major problem. But he's taking a slightly different look at this. The starting point being that in 2004, apparently, a Finnish government tax auditor was found dead at his desk, where he'd sat undisturbed for 2 days.
This is going somewhere.
Not one of the 100 or so colleagues on the same floor had even noticed, and no one had noticed any disruption in productivity. So that's kind of like
his productivity
of the productivity of the unit in which he worked. He was just nothing was being done, which is a very sad start to the story. But it's talking about how titles these days, like people having names of things that no one understands what they do, means that they get away for years with doing no work.
Well,
so
that's
in
amongst
a lot of other issues, they draw attention. For example, 40 years ago, he says, you could tell what someone did from their job title.
Yeah.
He said now it's a complete mystery. When you can't even understand the name of the job that someone does, how does anyone judge whether or not they're doing any work? And the gist of it is that lots of people hiding under banners, just spending years and years at work, no one knows what they do. I'm not accusing everyone, because clearly lots of people work very hard, but he's particularly talking about kind of IT and the office workplace and things like that.
Oh, it spreads further than that, but...
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Interesting. I wonder what title... People's titles are interesting, are they? And you hear someone's title, what is that? I don't know.
Let me tell you this story.
Any spring to mind?
So Peter Brown is who I'm going to introduce you to. He was one of the last black Second World War RAF heroes. He died at the age of 96. And what's been happening is there was a campaign to trace his family to attend his funeral. And council officials were so determined to give Flight Sergeant Brown a dignified send-off because he very sadly died alone in his flat at the age of 96, right? So the response to this story kind of was overwhelming, and his funeral has now been moved to a new venue to accommodate 600 people. And because the service was scheduled to take place last month in a chapel in Mortlake in southwest London. It holds about 140 mourners. But because so many people have asked to attend it, it's been postponed. It's going to go ahead on May the 25th at St Clement Danes, which is the RAF Central Church in Westminster. And what the councillors did is they worked with loads of researchers and historians and found people that whose lives he touched along the way. He was born in Jamaica in 1926. He enlisted in the RAF Volunteer Reserve in September 43. Trained as a wireless operator and air gunner, posted to 625 Squadron at RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire, and he flew Lancaster bombers. And he's died at the age of 96, and the RAFs have said, Flight Sergeant Brown is an example of the selfless contribution of all Commonwealth personnel who have served throughout the RAF's history. We should never forget their sacrifices, which have defended our freedom and kept us safe. It's a good recognition of someone who deserves it.
Organisations, aren't there, that specifically make sure that no one should have a funeral with no one at it? You know, because there are people who have no one, and there are people who go just on principle, so that somebody is there when that moment happens.
So a life is honoured.